For anyone listening on Spotify and anyone watching on YouTube, today we're working on Masters of the Craft, one of our series in which we speak to sales managers and brokers and anyone exceptional in the industry, really. And so today we've got Paul Elliott from Propp. I'm going to get your title wrong, Paul, so I'm going to let you say that. But talk to me about what you do at Propp.
Yeah, well, my title is managing director, but it's in a business like ours, a growing business, relatively new business. We've been sort of trading properly for 2 years. It's managing director, stroke sales manager, stroke marketing input,
IT, HR.
yeah. So yeah, basically jack of all trades. But I would say that my core focus is from a strategic perspective. My focus is on how we grow the business, but also how we grow the culture within the business as well, to make sure that we're bringing the right people in and they understand what we're trying to achieve and that they're bought into that from the get-go, really.
Great. So talk to me about how you got there. Talk to me about your journey in financial services to this point.
Wow. Started in 99.
Yeah, maybe not the full 20 years, just brief.
So I got into the industry 20 odd years ago, pre-regulation. I've worked for various companies for a couple of years. I went out on my own and tried to set up a business around that for about 6 or 7 years. Got through the worst of the financial crisis in 08, 09, but then we decided that it was the time to sort of probably call it quits on the business, myself and my business partner. So I went back into an employed role for Simply Finance in Southampton with Ben and Pete, who are now part of Propp. And a couple of years into that, Pete identified that there was a real need for a specialist section of the business. So Simply had done residential mortgages and had dabbled in a little bit of buy-to-let, but not really done a massive amount of it. But we could see that there was the market was growing. This was around 2012. So they asked me to sort of grow a team of specialists in buy-to-let. So we did that for 3 or 4 years, culminated in us winning buy-to-let broker of the year in 2014 at the British Mortgage Awards. We then started to incorporate secured loans. And then we also started to bring in bridging finance as well, so making it more of a specialist proposition. That business was acquired by John Charcoal in 2016. That allowed us to actually grow that specialist sector a little bit further because we were then working with the Charcoal office in London, and I was involved in kind of coordinating how the two businesses work together. 2017. I decided it was time to move on, went and spent 18 months or so in Camberley working under Ying with Dynamo. Running
How was that time with Ying? How was it? How did you find that?
Yeah, it was good. I learned a lot. It was probably the first time that I'd stepped into a world that was different to the world that I'd always known in financial services. So the businesses that I'd worked for before, I've worked with a lot of the same people. This was the first time when I was going to work with people that I didn't really know. I knew Ying, just socially through the industry, but I'd never worked with him. And some of the practices and processes that he had instilled at what was the buy-to-let business were different to what I was used to. So I'd like to think that one of the things that I'm quite good at is adapting to change. So I embraced a lot of those things. I learned from them. There were some things that I didn't necessarily think were the right way to do it, and I've kind of taken some of that learning. Do you
think that was a massive benefit? Obviously, Propp being a new business, do you think that's a big benefit actually having a taste of running your own stuff, having a taste of working with Simply, then Charcoal, and then obviously how Ying did it? Do you think that's benefited you to get a more rounder kind of experience?
Oh yeah, without doubt. Yeah, there are things that we do in the business now, and there are things that we've done since setting the business up that are a culmination of that experience. It's an old adage, but you surround people, you surround yourself with people that are good at different things to get a good outcome. We've got 5 directors in the business, and we've all got our own strengths. One of the reasons why Ben and Pete asked me to come in to help them set Propp up is because they knew the experience that I brought in that sector and the strengths that I had in that sector. But some of that was gleaned from external resources, like I say, with the guys at the Buy to
I think that's important. That's important for people who, there's young people in the industry want to bounce back in straight away, get their own business and that kind of thing. But I do think it's important to get around an understanding of the business. Like they might have been at one place, they might only know that place, and that's the way they do business. So they assume it's the right place, but or the right way to do it. But in fact, there's lots of different avenues in this.
Well, interestingly, what I saw actually when I was at the Buy to Let business, they had a really strong recruitment strategy, and they would, as you probably know, they bring a lot of new people into the industry, no experience whatsoever, and they would come in, and the kind of honeymoon period would be over, and then you'd start to hear them sort of, a few niggles, a few moans about this and a few moans about that, but that's all they knew. And it's not until more experienced people in the industry would say, you don't know how good you got it. There are other businesses out there where you don't get the opportunity that you're getting here. You don't get the level of experience sat around you that you can learn from. I've known of places where they sort of bring people in, they give them 2 or 3 weeks training, and then that's it, they're out. They're
back of an estate agent for the rest of your life trying to work it out.
Yeah. So there are some benefits for bringing people new to the industry who've got no preconceived ideas of how it should be done. But equally, those people need to be told that there are other ways to skin the cat as well.
That's interesting, actually. I was going to wait till later on in my list of things to discuss with you, but since it's come up, so you set up a successful training academy, haven't you, at Propp, and that's kind of, I know you're relatively new, but that looks to be successful, and I know you're trying to potentially looking at another intake of that. So talk to me about the kind of the ups and downs of that training academy side of things. For people that only ever want experienced people, I want that guy with 5 years experience, because you've got to look at young blood into the industry. I think it's really important. I don't think enough people do it.
Yeah, well, we'd actually learned a lot from Simply, because although we didn't talk about it as much, that's how we grew the Buy to Let team. So we had a couple of people who were existing advisors that we brought over to sort of get the team up and running. But then after that, it was new recruits. We took a lad who had been in the estate agency for 6 months. Prior to that, he'd been, at college. We took a guy who was working part-time in Halfords, and we turned them into advisors. One of which now runs his own business.
Just for anyone listening, in regards to that, if you're new, a little bit of a story in regards to that Simply Buy to Let market is a chap came into my office years ago and he said, I want to be a mortgage advisor. And I kind of didn't poo-poo it. I just said, go and get your CMAPs and let's have a chat and I'll get you a job. Thinking he wouldn't come back. He came back 6 months later and he said, here's my CMAPs. You told me you'd get me a job. So then I phoned you, Paul, and said, look, I've kind of promised this guy that he's got to at least get in front of someone. As it transpires, the guy was really good. He now has his own business, doesn't he? He's good at what he does. But it's interesting to show that if you have got that commitment and someone says, go and get your CMAP and let's see what we can do, go and do it. People have their own businesses now that had the opportunity through your training academy. So it's not just kind of, this is how we build middle of the road advisors. Some great brokers have come from no experience whatsoever, just had the wherewithal to go and get their CMAPs and then come back and see someone like yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and just touching on that point, the amount of people that we said that to that would come to us through other recruitment agencies at that time, I'd say go away and get some experience, go away and get CMAP, and 95% of the time you never heard from those people again. And that's what I was used to
say. Yeah, absolutely. Go and get your CMAP and I'll get your job. So I'm thinking, you're not coming back. No. Because you've got to actually do something. You want to be a broker because you want to earn good money, but you don't want to have to dig in. So I think it also shows that they've got a bit of skin in the game. They're committed to it. If they put their £1,000 down to do their qualifications or whatever it is, I think it is important. I think you put people through it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks volume for their character if they're prepared to go away and do that. And if someone is prepared to do that and be brave and take a chance, you're more likely to take a chance on them. We had another example of that in the Simply days, and I said to the guy, I'm not giving you any leads, you can just come in and work the database. So gave him another challenge on top of the challenge of going and getting CMAP. His first month, he wrote more business than some of our experienced advisors because he just got in there and saw an opportunity.
It's what's available on your database, isn't it, when you get someone just to chat?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
We've had a similar thing.
The other guys were then looking at him going, oh, here we go. You see what we're going to be doing now. But yeah, going back to your point, I personally learned a lot of lessons about management in that first iteration of the academy at Simply. I learned some of the things that are good about bringing new recruits in and how to manage those people. And I made some mistakes as well. And I've learned from those mistakes. Hopefully this time round, I've sort of remembered some of the things that didn't go particularly well, or I didn't manage very well. And taking that, plus some of the stuff that I learned from Dynamo and the way that they brought their recruits through as well, and married the two together. I'd say one of the things that I was probably I was guilty of doing in the first iteration was maybe micromanaging too much. Something that I learned when I went to Dynamo is you've got to give people space to learn, and let them show you how much they want it. You know, let them, give them the opportunity to absorb and give them the opportunity to ask questions, but give them space to actually figure out what type of advisor they want to be, rather than just saying this is one size fits all model and you must do it this way and I'm going to micromanage you that way. You know, it's a bit too stifling.
That makes sense. I mean, in regards to the micromanagement side of things, it's so easy to lose people, isn't it? Because they are spending your money at the end of the day. You know, in the beginning, they are leads that you don't want to lose. You know, it's money you don't want to lose out of the business. So, not that you've got to have deep pockets, you've got to have the mindset of these guys are going to make a few mistakes, aren't they? They're not going to sell like you. You know, if you wanted you on the phone all the time, but that's not how you build a business. So, it's you have to take that kind of the rough with the smooth with that.
Yeah, and that's the business model that we looked at before we started the academy. So we started talking about the academy in January 21. We didn't bring our first trainees through until May. So we took time to look at where the market was, look at our leads, look at our conversions, look at the type of people that we wanted. We ran an open evening where we got people along, and we actually had all of the team come along, and we got their feedback on people because we were interested in, are they going to be a cultural fit? We're a small business, it's a small office environment, you've got to have the right people in there. So we recruited those people primarily based on, are they a good fit for the business? Because we know we can teach them how to be brokers. But we built into that business model, these people are not going to, you're not going to be making any money out of these people for 6 months. Or if you build your model based on, they're not going to be making any money within 6 months. If you get one in there that suddenly starts to turn a profit after 3 or 4 months, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and fortunately for us, that's where we are. Yeah, we've, you know, when was that? So that was May. So our guys are doing their 6-month appraisal next week. We've still got the original academy trainees, they're all still with us. And they're now getting to a stage where they're building pipelines and making money, which is great.
Good. And that's all. So that is successful. That is happening successfully then. Because it must be, because I know that you're potentially looking at one next year as well, which means the first one didn't work. You're not going to carry on, are you? Which is good. I mean, that's a good. It makes sense. So, in regards to that as well, so you've hired on character rather than technical skill, as we know you can teach anyone the technical side of things. Yeah. So that's really interesting as well that you got your staff involved. Do you think that was important? Do you think that was kind of reiterate? Did any of them pick ones that you didn't, or was it quite? Did it get quite deep with the staff in regards to who they thought fitted and who they thought didn't, or was it? You weren't just paying lip service to your staff, you know, it wasn't just so they get their buy-in.
No, absolutely not. We wanted their opinions. So I think everyone that had come along, so the 3 that we took on had been interviewed already. So we had a feel for them. We knew that they had the attributes that we needed to be able to train them. But if they walked into a room with the rest of the team and, you know, hadn't felt right, if we hadn't had a consensus from the team.
I believe you hadn't told the team, you hadn't told the team who you'd already thought was good. That wasn't like you got their information. It collated with yours. So
yeah, exactly. So we had 3 people in mind, which we, you know, funnily enough, the team probably decided on 4, and one of them at the time we felt was going to be a bit more of a risk, and because I was going to run that academy, we'd kind of decided I'd rather focus on the 3 that we know we're really confident that we can do something with, rather than diluting that and maybe having one person that might suck a lot of energy or suck a lot of time resource, which I couldn't then give to the other people. So after the open evening, there was sort of 4 names on the table, and then as a senior management team, we made the call on 3, knowing that the team were happy with, you know, if we've taken all 4, great. If we've taken 3 or 2 of those people, they were happy that they were going to fit into the team.
Do you think that's a big one in regards to energy? Because obviously, if you've got an energy sapper or someone's just going to take up too much and you're running an academy, and obviously you've got the rest of the business to run, you know, as much as the academy is your kind of baby as well. Do you think that's an essential part of looking like how much someone will be able to run with it without sucking up the energy of the rest of the team? Do you think that also? Well, one you didn't pick.
Going back to the Simply Finance days, that's one of the lessons I learned. There were characters that we kept in the business longer than we should have done, and they had a negative impact on the team. Again, it was a relatively small team, so one character, one personality had a big impact on the overall feel of the team. And I personally, I made the mistake of letting that negativity go on for a bit longer than I should have done. I was too optimistic about being able to change that person. When
you know, everyone thinks that as well, don't they? In your head, you think that this is just a small problem, especially if they're big. It's quite hard if someone's writing business to then actually look and go, look, you're negative against the culture, because it's hard. It's the same as in recruitment. It's hard to get rid of a top biller or a top banker because they're not right for the team. You've got to, haven't you? You know that now, in hindsight, that it kills the team in regards to the culture and the environment.
And I mean, going back to our recruitment strategy, as I said, we've gone with the academy, but that's one facet of it. So we have gone out and found experienced people, but again, those people have had to have the right personality to fit in with the team. So there have been people that are, you know, hugely experienced, big hitters, but we've sat down and the first question we've asked after the interview as a management team, will they fit in? And unless there's 100% agreement that they're going to fit in, then we don't bring them in. And as you said, they would have definitely added to the bottom line, but they could have hindered someone else's progression because they might have overshadowed them or made them, you know, feel uncomfortable. You could have lost some really good people because they didn't feel comfortable, you know, in the environment that was created. So you've got to take a balanced view of it. And I think at the moment,
that makes sense. It's creating that work environment for everyone rather than someone you can just make a quick buck, because you're in it for the long game, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about the team at the moment, because obviously a lot of the business is buy to let. We know that the market after the mini budget wasn't as favourable to this side of the market. So let's talk about, you built up a team in a relatively nice market for them. It's a nice time for them to still started. How do you manage the team at the moment, or motivate the team the same, or what's the difference now in between kind of the more challenging times than it was when it was a kind of an up? Because some of these guys, your team's relatively young, so some of them won't have seen any hardship really.
No, and that's probably the benefit that we've got of having quite an experienced management team, because we've all been through 08, 09, you know, the experiences that came with that, and then we've been through taxation changes in the buy-to-let space, stamp duty rises, you know, all of these things that were going to kill the market, and then suddenly we're still in the market. So what we've tried to do is try to just take a very measured and calm approach, and just give them an understanding that if they can get through this and they can stay close to their customers through this, they're the ones that are going to come out the other end of it and be successful. I think again in the chat that you had with Si, you know, talking to people about if you can get through this and you can stay close to your clients and have good relationships with your clients, they're going to remember that, you know, further down the line when the market is back and people are looking to grow and what have you. They're going to remember the people that stay close to them and were there to give them advice. We're giving a lot of advice at the moment, which doesn't result in business, but it's the right advice to give to customers, and it's building a relationship. Where our guys are very new to the industry, we're talking to them now about you've got to build relationships with your clients to make sure that when the market you know, recovers from this, or when interest rates, you know, start to settle down a little bit, that they're the first person that they're going to pick the phone up to is you.
Yeah, I think that's important as well. As you just mentioned then, that your management team is very experienced, so you've got to go in with a calm head, haven't you? Like if you I've seen it at the moment with this trickle down management thing where managers come in and tell you the business is shit. Well, all of a sudden people are less productive. You know, you can't be like that. You've got to, like you said, you've got to tell them that this is the long game. And this isn't going to hurt them either in the long term. For them to understand, they've just got to keep up this level of business when the business is good.
Yeah.
And come out the other side. But yeah, I imagine it's harder for you having a young team to just say, because it's easy to say, it's easy for you because you've seen it. You know that in 12 months' time, things are back to normal. Everyone's making money again. But I suppose it's just getting that across to a younger team is probably a bit more challenging.
Yeah, and I certainly understand that we've got a responsibility to do that, to make sure that we're not, that we are guiding them through this period, because they're 6 months into their career, our academy guys, and actually some of our experienced guys, what do you deem as experience? Someone that's 5 years into the industry is an experienced advisor, but they still haven't seen the financial crash. So experience is relative. So we're helping those guys through this period as well. They've got clients to fall back on. They've got they've got confidence in their own ability to get them through, but they're still asking us questions about what happens if this happens. Where do you think this is going? One of the things that we've started to do more regularly is meet as a team and just have an open forum. So Monday afternoons we have our sales meeting where we do go through numbers and cases and what have you, and we do a bit on compliance and all the other bits, but we've turned it into an open forum. So 2 of the guys will turn up. I'll nominate someone at the start of the day, and one needs to come and give us an overview of the economy, and one needs to come and give us an overview of where the lenders are at the moment. So in terms of who's got the best stress tests in buy-to-let for a limited company or for personal, for portfolio landlords, non-portfolio landlords, which lenders are standing out as giving good service at the moment. Again, something that, going back to what we talked about, is we learned from other businesses. That's something that I learned from Dynamo, is having a meeting with the team where it's engagement and it's interactive. And then we'll just pose questions at them. So, Pete will be sat in the room with me, and we did the piece on economy yesterday, and then he starts asking the guys questions off the back of that. So it turns into a discussion, which is just making them think more broadly than how many deals I'm going to sign this month, where am I going to get this from?
Which obviously is in their head. For young guys, that is in your head. Like, we know it's a long game. Like we said to people, don't panic if it's not this month, it'll be next month. But it must still be in their heads. Like, I know I've still got to sign deals. I've still got to, they're getting paid, but they've still got to make money on top of that. So, and obviously keep you guys happy. So it's good that you keep that line of communication open as well, that they know that I just think it's too easy to bury your head in the sand at the moment and leave these guys to, imagine the panic on some of these guys that if they're not speaking to their boss every week. I think it must be a hardship for some of these guys when they're not, like, the boss comes in with a frightened look on his face, and then goes and sits in his office and don't interact with the staff. I just think you guys are obviously nailing it in regards to keeping the communication open.
Well, it's a really good point. I had this discussion last night with my wife, actually, over dinner. I was off last week, so the guys were kind of on their own to a certain extent. Obviously, Pete was in and the other management team were in, but the academy guys obviously have looked to me to sort of help guide them through. And I think 10 years ago, had I come back, even as a manager, I'd come back into the office, I would have sat down at my desk. My first thing I would have done is I would have looked at all my emails, gone through all my emails, and organised my own day. And then an hour or so later, I would have looked up and said, how's everyone going? How is everyone? Personally, I think where I've developed as a manager is I didn't open my laptop for the first 45 minutes when I walked through the door. So I walked around and I spoke to the team, how was last week? How are you getting on? We were talking about this case before I left. How did that go? What's happening with this one? How are things generally? And just connected with the team again to get a feel for what the office was like, get a feel for the mood in the office, and then I could get on and organise the rest of my day, knowing that I touched base.
And actually, that helps them, doesn't it? Because I expect if they haven't had a great week last week, or if they've just been struggling a bit, if you come in, just a horrible feeling. I mean, we both had a similar person we've worked for years and years ago who would walk in and go, right, deals on my desk now. After 2008, we're struggling to get funding lines ready. That feeling was horrible. So to give that reassurance to you guys must be, and help them in the long term as well. It helps with loyalty, job security, that kind of thing, and it makes a massive difference.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Good. So, but back to the team side of things. I know we touched on it off air, but I'd love to kind of reiterate this when we're talking now, but we were talking about referrals and how your guys and the importance of referrals, but not just any referral.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how you train your guys in regards to getting referrals, what makes a good referral, and I think this is important for young brokers because it's too easy to stick it at the end of your email signature and say, do you know anyone that wants to help? So talk to me about how you guys do it there and how that's proved successful.
So what I'm trying to teach the guys is to be specific in what they're asking for two reasons. So first reason is that if you ask someone, if you know anyone that might need my services, or if you know anyone that needs a mortgage, you know, point them in my direction. It's very hard for that individual to go through their kind of mental checklist of people they know and find someone that they can refer to you. And bear in mind, you know, as humans, we want to try and help other humans. And if you've got a good service, you want to tell other people about that good service, and you want them to get the same service because you see that as, you know, something that you've given them. So by not being specific in terms of what you're asking that client to provide you with, you're making it difficult for them to give you a referral. So instead of saying, oh, if you know anyone who wants a mortgage, please send them in my direction. If you choose something specific, so let's say, for example, if you know anyone that's doing home improvements at the moment, and they might need some money to do it, you know, send them in my direction. And then someone will go, oh yeah, John the other day was saying down the pub there, thinking of doing a loft conversion. Oh yeah, I've got my mate, John, he's thinking of doing it. And then you're just getting an introduction, but you're getting something specific that you've asked for. So you're happier because you're getting the type of referral that you want. They're happy because they've been able to give you a referral that they know that you're happy with as well. So that's the flip side of it, is be specific to make sure that you get the type of inquiry that you want. There's nothing, you know, it really can be quite frustrating if, let's say, for example, you're a buy-to-let specialist and you don't ask for buy-to-let referrals. You don't ask your landlords, are there any other landlords that you talk to that you think would benefit from my services? And then suddenly you start getting loads of referrals for first-time buyers that want to do help to buy, which you've got no understanding of. And that's not the client bank that you want to build. You know, if you want to go after, let's say, for example, you want to go after HMO portfolio landlords, ask for HMO portfolio landlords. Be specific. Do you know any landlords that specialise in HMOs? Yes, I do. Okay, would you be prepared to introduce me just so I can have a chat with them? So go after what you want. Start to segment your client bank or understand the type of clients that you want to work with, and then go and ask for it.
And where do you think in regards to asking for referrals, where do you do it? Is it just one stage where you kind of bang out a referral? What do you tell the guys is the best time to get it, or do you keep it kind of through the process?
I think personally you need to put it through the process, and hands up, I've never been brilliant at consistently asking for it. So I can talk the talk, but I haven't always walked the walk.
Concentrate people on how to do it.
yeah. Don't do as I did, do as I say. But no, you know, typically you should be asking for referrals at least 3 times in the process. So initially, if you earmark early on in the fact find call, whilst you're building a relationship with the client, you know, be open and say, I'm building a client bank at the moment. I'm looking to grow a client bank. So hopefully you're going to be happy with the work that I've done, and then I'm going to ask you if you've got anyone that you can refer me to that would benefit from the services as well. So you've flagged that up early on in the call. Then through the process, so the next time that, you know, a positive conversation is likely to happen is at mortgage offer stage. Don't forget, I'm going to be coming back to you and talking to you about referrals once we've got this over the line. Let me get this done for you, and then start thinking about some of the people that
their minds already ticking in regards to how they can help. And also, when you ask at the end, and it's just that we have the same problem with referrals, we ask at the end, if we forget in the middle, you kind of put someone on the spot and they haven't got it. You know, it's hard to put that in there. But if you've already set it up, they might think of someone in the middle of the process and go, oh, I remember, I'll definitely tell them. When it's the touch points, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, if you put them on the spot at the end and then you give them a really generic request, there's no chance they're going to be able to tell you anything that's of any value to you. So if you flagged it early on in the conversation, then you've been specific about the type of client or referral that you would like, you're more likely to get the results that you want.
Good, good, good. And in regards to getting themselves out there, are you quite big on that? Quite pushing your guys on social media? We know it's the kind of the future of referrals, if you like. Are they too short in their industry to start doing that process because they've got so much to think about, or are you quite hot on getting them out there on social media and getting referrals from that business, or showing that they're knowledgeable on there?
Yeah, I think we've focused in this first 6 months with the academy guys in particular on just honing their skills, understanding the process, and starting to become experts in their field. But the next stage is definitely starting to be vocal, whether that's talking about deals that they're doing or just talking about parts of the industry. So, you know, big thing at the moment is obviously green mortgages. You know, EPCs are a big thing in our space. And so just going out and being spokespeople for the industry, I think that's the way that if you start to create a voice of knowledge within the industry, then you start to get referrals off the back of that anyway. So we haven't really pushed them as yet. We don't want to overload them. But if any of them are watching this, then yeah, they're going to be asked.
Get busy.
we're really fortunate.
They should all be watching.
So yeah, exactly. We're really fortunate actually. We've got a really good marketing team, and they're very, very good at getting the brand out there and promoting, you know, what we do. And then our more experienced guys, we sort of have a process with them where we ask them to post on a regular basis on social media as well. So yeah, it will become, as you said, it's, you know, in the current era, it's the way that you know that lead generation and referrals are going.
Free business.
Say again.
I said it's free business. It just seems crazy not to kind of utilize it, doesn't it? It's when you can, and also it's just that trustworthy face as well. I know brand awareness is really important. You guys smash it in regards to that. I've had this conversation with Pete before as well, just in regards to personal brand. I know it's not massive, doesn't massively buy into it, but I think for your junior guys, that's going to be the future.
Yeah.
Of not necessarily being, I mean, everyone's got to be aware of your brand, but I'm not sure everyone knows who my company is. But I'm pretty sure that people, if they're looking for a mortgage advisor, know who I am. I do think it's important to push that. We've got to do both. I probably don't push the brand enough either, so you've got to find a happy medium.
Well, it's interesting. We've had conversations with some other brokerages in the market, looking at sort of technology pieces and what have you, and some major players in the market. And I remember having a conversation with them, with this one particular company. And I said, so you get a landlord, how do they develop a relationship with the broker? They don't. So what do you mean? Their relationship is with the brand. Okay.
No, it's not.
What happens when that landlord, you know, that landlord's got 50 properties and he wants to come back and do another 4 or 5 remortgages? You're saying he's got to go to a new advisor and tell that advisor all about his story and all about, you know, everything about him to get those mortgages. He's not going to do that. You know, that's not. They want.
I do understand people's point of view in that you're scared of losing the broker, losing the customer. Yeah. That is going to happen. Treat your brokers well so they don't leave, because that landlord is not going to phone your brand. No. He's going to phone his broker's mobile phone. So we just have to accept. And I know people try and build their brand up so like it doesn't rely on the broker, but it's just not realistic. Your brokers are the guys that have that relationship. Like you, I'm sure you don't wait for your landlords to phone you to say, oh, I've got another couple. I'm sure you've got them on speed dial, that you are calling these guys, just asking them how their wife is, you know, or you know what happened with the golf. You know what I mean? It's crazy to think you can cut out a broker because people want brand. Like none of us are Apple or Nike. You know, we're not. We're speaking to someone specifically on the phone.
You know, I tell all of the new guys that come into any business that I work in, there's a landlord that I've been working with now since 2013, I think. And we've met various times over the years, but the last time we met for coffee, he said, before I'd met you, he'd been in the industry, he's been a landlord since '97. He said, any broker can do the job when everything's going well. He said, the value in a broker for me is when things go wrong, how does that broker react? He said, and the reason why I will never choose another broker rather than you is that when things were going wrong, in the first part of our first interactions, things weren't particularly going well for him. He said, rather than telling me to go off and do something and then waiting for me to come back, you diarised the call and you called me when you told me you were going to call me, and you asked me if I'd done what you told me I had to do, and then because I'd done what I had to do, you went and did what you told me you were going to do. So you told me what to do, you followed up on that call, and then you did what you were supposed to do. And that was through a period where he was struggling to get finance. We helped him through that process, and he's now followed me around every business I've been ever since.
We say this all the time. It's how you leave someone emotionally. Technically, great, you help someone out. Anyone can do it. If you don't do it and just pop them off on an email or something, then more for you. You're not going to be a big player in the market. But that's probably the most important thing that we've got to on this one. And the whole thing for young and people that just aren't very good. Do what you say you're going to do, and diarise and make sure you do it. Like, it's just, it's so simple. But that's the reason you've got landlords for 10, 15 years, or the reason you've got clients for life. You still see guys 15 years in buying leads, because it's that they've done that transactional process, unlike yourself, where you've actually diarised to call someone or whatever it is, even diarised for a chat. I just think it's bizarre that people don't think if you can't make money out of someone right now, you're not going to make money out of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've even got a status now on our CRM system that is future contact. So it's specifically, it's trying to get the guy's mentality that every lead that comes into the business, that's their client bank. So their client bank isn't the people that have transacted with them off that first inquiry. Their client bank is everyone that they've had a meaningful conversation with, where there is potentially opportunity to do business down the line. Now, that might be in 18 months' time, but it's still going to be business in 18 months' time. And you've got to build that relationship. You know, if you focus just on the transactional, what that client has made that inquiry about this first time round, if you don't end up getting that deal, if you think, well, that's it, done, you know, you're really, as you said, in 15 years' time, you're still going to be buying leads, or the business is still going to be buying leads for you. And then they're going to be looking at you going, well, you know, I've got these guys over here that no longer buying, I have to buy leads for. Why is this guy still?
Why am I still buying leads? Where are your customers? Or the guys that never progress because they've hit that. They know if they buy this amount of leads, they make this amount of money. They don't care about their back. But I've seen some of the major city corporate ones who don't care about their back book because they're attached to estate agents. They know they get so many leads in. For me, it blows my mind that, obviously, I'm not going to say who they are, but if they just concentrated on speaking to the people who were their fixed rates were coming up, they would never need to sell another house ever again. They would feed themselves forever. But it blows my mind that they look at the short game.
I've seen that not in the specialist space, but in the residential space, where it's all about volume. And again, a conversation I had with a big player in the industry. They've been around for 15 years, and they're writing serious numbers. And they're only just now developing their back-end process to start contacting their rate roll-offs, because they're so focused on the front-end stuff. And some of that's to do with some of the contracts that they've got and having to.
That's true. I was just thinking that with the estate agents, it's a little bit different because you've got to fulfil that. You've got to look after your back book.
Yeah. And as I said, you know, these are hugely successful businesses, and they're only just switching on to doing that now. So it's tricky. And you know, that point about them, you know, experienced advisors relying on leads, some of that comes down, particularly if they're employed, that comes down to you as a management team and not instilling the right ethos. So it doesn't just fall on them, particularly if you brought them in the industry, if you train them up. It's about how you've set their mindset to look after those clients long term as well. So it's not all down to the individual. It is down to.
No, you're right. Actually, yeah. If they can still sell a mortgage, it's the process. If that's the process they've learned, I suppose. But I just think that's something that would come to me naturally. If I want to make more money, I need to speak to the people I've spoken to.
Yeah.
I suppose, like you say, if you've never been taught it, you don't know what you don't know what you don't know. But and
again, it's an old cliche in any sales, any line of sales. It's far easier to sell to an existing client than it is to a new client, because you're not having to sell yourself. You know, you're not having to demonstrate that you've got knowledge. You don't have to establish any credibility with them. If you've done the job well one time round, why won't they just come back and use you again? And then it's more about an interaction with someone that you built a relationship with. That's far easier to work with someone like that than it is to try and convince. a new customer who's maybe put an inquiry on the internet and doesn't know you from, you know, the next broker down the road, that you're the person that they should deal with.
That's the hard bit. That's what I mean. They're doing the hard bit every time.
Yeah.
Right? You've done the hard bit. Just like make your life easier. Speak to the people that already like you.
You know, you get. I would say, in my experience at telesales for the last 20 years, I would say the first 30 seconds of that phone call can determine whether that customer is going to buy into you or not. So if you're going to do that every single time for the whole of your career, give yourself a 30-second window for that person to make a decision about whether to work with you or not. You're rolling a dice every time. You know, have you just come off a call and you're really annoyed, and then you've gone on to this next call, and now you haven't nailed it, and that customer's going elsewhere. Or you know, you're up, you've got a newborn at home, so you've had 3 hours sleep last night. You know, so you're not quite on your game the next day. If you're dealing with new leads every single day, you're going to struggle with that. Whereas the conversation with an existing customer is, oh, you know, the little one had me up through the middle of the night last night. Oh yeah, I remember those days. So it's a completely different conversation, right?
Yeah, just there's no connection, is there? And obviously that's the biggest part of sales, is connecting to people. And yeah, like you say, just being incredible. That's just very hard. The same reason we don't cold call, because it's very hard to show that we're a credible, trustworthy mortgage recruitment company when you're doing you've listened to one of 20 pitches on the phone. You've got to do something else. You've got to add value in some other way, and that is obviously things like this that can make sure you're a trusted part of the industry, but also looking after your customers. Just look after the people that spend money with you or have spent money with you. It blows my mind. Like I said, I think it's the most important thing. If any trainees are listening, or anyone who just doesn't do it, pick up your back book and phone them. I think you guys have been successful in that as well, haven't you? Especially when it's getting tougher, like just having those ring arounds, making sure everyone knows where you are, and we're here if you need us, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, picking up the phone to clients not to sell to them, just to talk to them. This is what's happening in the market. You know, what are your plans moving forward? What are your thoughts on where the market's going? You know, we deal with experienced landlords. We deal with landlords sometimes that have got more experience than the advisors that are helping them. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone and talk to them and have a conversation with them and find out what they think. You know?
That makes sense. So I've kept you for ages. I really appreciate your time, Paul. I ask everyone this, but if you've got one tip for new advisors, now I think obviously you're again in a good place to give these tips, given that you look after new advisors. But if you've got one tip that someone listening to this, they're looking to come into the industry, or they're 6 months in, maybe struggling at the moment, what would you say is the most important thing for someone who is relatively new to this? And obviously it's changed in the last few weeks, but anyone that's new to this industry, what would you advise them?
I think as a characteristic or an attribute, then it's resilience is probably one of the most important things, because you're going to get more knockdowns than you're going to get more people say no than you get say yes. It's just that's the way it is. So resilience and understanding that it is a numbers game. The more times you pick up the phone, the more people you speak to, the more engagement you get, the more business you're going to write. Knowledge, I think Si touched on it in his, absorb as much knowledge from around you as you can, you know, and that might be your customers, that might be experienced portfolio landlords. Talk to them about their experiences, and then other advisors around you. And in terms of the skill, the one that I'm really focusing on with our guys at the moment, or we're going to be focusing on over the coming weeks, is listening. So firstly, create an environment that allows you to listen properly, and then learn how to actively listen. Because you get so much information from your clients by listening to them, way more information than you get by talking at them. And you can very easily fall into the habit of talking over your clients, or trying to, you know, show them how great you are with loads of knowledge, when actually all you've got to do is ask them a question, ask them what they want, and then listen to it. Again, it's a story that I tell all of the guys that come into the office. When we were running our business, we needed a new telephone system. And so I had 2 companies come in and talk to us. And the first guy came in, introduced himself, wandered around the office, had a look at, you know, the system we got there, had a look at the system there, sat down in front of me and said, well, you need a double switch relay box there, and you probably need this, and you need voice over IP there with call recording there. So I'll go away and price that up, and I'll come back to you. I went, Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right.
The next guy came in and he sat down and he introduced himself and he said, "Tell me what you need." And I told
guess
him.
who you went with? Yeah.
Guess who I went with? Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
was his system any better than the other guys? I've no idea. No idea. But he sat down and asked me what I needed. I told him what I needed, and then he didn't try to sell to me. He said, "Okay, I'll go and figure that out, and I'll come back and let you know if I can provide it, and I'll give you an idea of the cost of it."
I don't think we allow how important or take for granted how important listening is. And I, for one, I think I was an awful listener, thinking I was good. It's only in the last couple of years that we actually, I mean, I'm still a nightmare for interrupting. It's something I work on all the time. And it's only ever interrupting to agree with someone's statement, but I know it's a problem with mine. But actually listening, like you just said then, I was talking to a new member of staff and we were talking, she said, "What do you do in client meetings?" I said, "I just sit there and listen." And they talked for about an hour and I'd listen in and I don't get involved. And I really have to shut my mouth because it's so tempting to give your opinion. But actually, yeah, like you say, it's a real skill. It's something that we're really learning on, we're really working on, because I think it's a skill that you think you can do until you actually realise, or especially if you record stuff and listen back and go, "Oh,
Yeah.
he said this, I didn't even acknowledge it." So yeah, you're right. It's really important, especially for new people, because you might think you can do it.
And I think for everyone, so like I said, even with loads and loads of experience in the industry, I'm learning now. My active listening is about listening to my team.
Yeah.
So not being, "I know everything, you need to listen to me." I'm getting feedback from them. They're dealing with customers day to day, which I'm not necessarily doing. So they're at the front line. They're understanding the concerns of these customers, getting that feedback, and then being able to use my experience to help them to engage with those customers. But that starts with listening to them and understanding what their concerns are and what their customers' challenges are, and then trying to guide them in the right way to look after those customers is really important. So
I had something about listening the other day, actually, when it was saying listening isn't about being able to repeat back to someone what they just said. It's about making them feel heard, which really struck a chord with me, because I can recall exactly what someone said. But actually, have they felt like I've listened because I've jumped in? And also, just a really important part of listening is asking questions to keep someone talking. I think that's an important part of listening, because otherwise you haven't really heard what they said because you haven't been able to expand it. So keeping someone talking is a really important part of listening. There are two of those things that I heard recently that because we are on that listening journey at the moment, trying to get better at it, because it's a fault. But yeah, it's good. It makes sense for you to help your guys like that.
yeah.
Good. That's been really useful. I'll clap that now. That's been really useful, Paul. So I really appreciate all your time there. If anyone has any questions from Paul, especially on the training side or the academy side, if they're looking later on, you can contact him on LinkedIn. I'm sure he won't mind any questions. And if anyone wants to come to me with any questions, you're more than welcome to ask me, and I will pass them on to Paul. But other than that, I appreciate your time. Obviously, we'll put all your social links on here as well. And thank you to anyone listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube. And we'll catch up with you soon. So I appreciate that, Paul. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Marcus.